if you were watching the Memorial Tournament on Sunday afternoon and watching that bizarre finish to the tournament, when Hideki Matsuyama got to the 18th hole, hit his drive, thought he had pushed it way right, and
well, he did, but he got a good break,
yeah,
right?
He got a
ball
good break,
came back into play.
But anyway, he didn't really slam the club down. We know club slammers when we see them.
Yeah, we've seen that
but
before.
the head came off of his club.
The shaft broke.
The shaft broke. And there was some confusion on the broadcast and some confusion going along as to what possibilities he had for remedies to that, because he was about to go into a playoff as well. Explain how.
Let's talk about what happens when you damage or break a club out on the golf course, okay? First of all, it's either happened one or two ways. Either you've damaged it or broken it in what we'll call the normal course of play.
Yeah.
Or you've damaged it and broken it in something other than the normal course of play.
And I think we all know the difference, even though it's not specifically defined.
Well, we saw Hideki Matsuyama. He got done his drive on Sunday on the 18th hole, slammed his driver down. It wasn't a hard slam, but a slam nonetheless, not considered the normal course of play. The shaft broke. Basically, he's done with that club for that stipulated round, which ended right after the 18th hole. And if he was not allowed to replace it in any way, shape, or form, because when you damage a club in the non-normal course of play, it's out for the rest of the round. Now, as he went into the playoff, because the round was over, if he had opted, he could have taken out a driver that apparently he had in his locker and used that in the playoff. But he was hitting his 3-wood pretty well, and I think he just kind of figured that's pretty much all he needed.
Well, and he knew the club. Apparently, his caddy had said, he and the backup driver are not good friends right now. So they decided to go that way. But so in the normal course of play,
now we have a different story. If somebody, let's say he swung an iron, he was in the rough, he swung an iron, he hit a tree root, and he bent the club or broke the shaft. Let's first of all go to breaking the shaft. Okay, that's considered the normal course of play. What would he be allowed to do? Well, if it didn't unduly delay play, he'd be allowed to replace it. So if somebody else could run to the clubhouse and get another club for him, and it wouldn't have to be the club that he damaged. So let's say he damaged his 7-iron, he wouldn't have to if somebody had a replacement for him to use a 7-iron. If he wanted to throw another wedge in the bag, he could. That was his choice.
Now that's an interesting.
He would not have to replace it with what was necessarily damaged.
And as you know, out on tour, that happens. Guys break clubs during the normal course of play, and somebody in the entourage, maybe that's a good reason to have an entourage, goes back into the locker room, gets the other club, and by the next hole, usually, the guy's got his.
And that's a good example. It didn't unduly delay play. Now, one of the things I think we need to talk about, though, are the adjustable woods today, because we've seen times where the club has come loose during the round. If that happens, let's say you have a driver.
You get a screw loose.
You hit it, you get a screw loose, you're allowed to fix that club. That's why I carry around one of the wrenches in my bag that would fix my woods, just because sometimes, not only do we want to adjust them, and we can't do it during the round. Once you start a round, you have to leave the club at the same setting you started it at, okay? But if you damage it or it comes loose, you can repair it, but it has to go back to that same setting. So if you're out there and all of a sudden you swang and hit with the new club and it came loose and you could fix it without delaying play, you're allowed to do that. Now, the one thing I want to caution everybody on is, especially with your irons, if you swing and hit, especially a tree root or something, and you damage the hosel a little bit and change the lie angle or the loft, that doesn't necessarily deem the club to be unfit for play. Meaning you can change it. If you've bent the shaft significantly, or if there's damage and it's really bent, they're going to call that being able to replace it. But if you swung and hit and it's just done a little something to the hosel, that doesn't necessarily mean you can replace it. So unless you've really broken something and you want to replace it, you always want to check with an official, especially if you're playing in a bigger event.
Can you still use the bent club?
You can. If you did it during the normal course of play, you're allowed to use it.
All right.
Absolutely.
But you bust that putter over your knee, or almost bust that putter over your knee.
You're bumming for the rest of the round. You're done.
You're using your 3-wood, which is what Bubba did anyway.
The whole key is whether or not you've done it during the normal course of play, so be normal.